जीवन जगपितु जगदाता जगदाधार जगत विख्याता श्री राधा कृष्णाय नमः।
गोपीजन वल्लभ Thank you very much.
Hare Krishna. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji.
Please accept
Jai. All glory to Guru Deva, all glory to Srila Prabhupada. Hold on.
So, yeah, welcome to this evening's Srimad Bhagavatam class. So,
it seems there is some noise at the background.
not from this end.
That's from your end.
I don't think so. I don't know. There's another system
Let me.
going on here.
I think it's from the background.
Okay, is it stopped now?
I muted my mic, but it's okay. It's gone now.
It's gone. Okay, there was another system behind my laptop, so I think it's the fan of that system. Are we okay now?
I think so. Yes.
So is Grace Kusha Prabhu is not there, so can we start now?
No. So should we wait a little bit, or we should just start? If we should just
I
start,
don't know. I'm just the speakers for today, so
yeah.
unless I'm going to be hosting alongside with the I don't know the arrangement
I
of the.
think. Let me say it's just a minute after. Maybe we can play 2-3 minutes background to see if others will come.
Okay.
And then yeah. So let's do that. Oh.
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare,
Hare Krishna, what is going on?
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna,
Prabhu, are you there?
Hare Krishna. I think Adi Prabhu is just trying to by time.
Hare Krishna,
But if you want
Hare
hosting,
Krishna,
Okay, try to buy time.
Hare Hare.
I think he was just playing to see if maybe one or more two people will come in.
Prabhu,
It's
we are
okay.
okay.
Yeah.
I mean, there are 3 people here now. Let's start. Let them come if they want to come.
Okay.
Om Agyanam Timirandasya Gyanam Gyanam Chalakaya Chakchumilitam Jena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namah Sri Chaitanya Manobishtam Stapitam Jena Bhutale Swayam Rupam Kadamayam Dadati Swanpada Antikam Mokam Karoti Vachalam Pangam Lagayate Girim Yakripatam Vande Sri Guru Dinatarinam He Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dinabandhu Gagapati Gopisha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Nama Austute Tarta Kanchana Gorange Radhivinda Vaneshwari Vrishabhanu Shiti Devi Pranamamin Are Priye Vancha Karpata Rubhyascha Kripa Sundhyas Evascha Patitanam Pavashnebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha Jai Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadada Shrivachari Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Ram 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Ram Ram Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Ram Ram Hare Hare. Tantra Srimad Bhagavatam class ki jai.
Right.
Hare Krishna devotees. So once again, I want to welcome each and every one of us that are here on this platform this evening in Nigeria and maybe afternoon in the US, and good morning, good afternoon, good evening to everyone who is here. Today we are reading from Srimad Bhagavatam, First Canto, Chapter 9, text number 6 to 7. But before I start going into the text and I'm reciting the translation and purport of Srila Prabhupada, I want to offer my respectful obeisances unto all of the Vaishnava devotees who are assembled here, by whose mercy a dumb person like me can afford to speak very loud by their grace and their mercy. I offer my respectful obeisances to His Divine Grace, Lahisi Bhakti Vedanta Swami Jagaguru Srila Prabhupada, by His mercy, whose mercy even someone from this most hellish part of the world can recite, hear, and chant the holy name of the Lord. I offer my respectful obeisances unto my predecessors, my dear spiritual masters, Divine Grace, Srila Bhakti Titi Swami Krishnapal, and all the Vaishnava devotees. I pray that by your mercy, I may be able to speak something that will be of purification to myself and a pleasure. For chapter 9, text number 16, number 6 to 7, text number 6 to 7, and which goes thus. Paravato narado damyo bhagavan badarayana Vyadasvo Bharadwaja Sasis Yorenuka Sutta Vashista Indra Pramadas Trito Grisamado O Asita Kaksivam Gautamo Tris Cha Aha Kausikota Suda Ashanam. Word for word translation. Parvata Muni, Narada Muni, Damya, Bhagavan, incarnation of Godhead, Badarayana, Srila Vyasadeva, Brihadasva, Bharadwaja, Sage Bharadwaja, Sasisya, along with disciples, Renuka Sutta, Parasuram, Vashista, Sri Vashista Muni, Indra Pramada, Trita, Sage Trita, Gritsamada, Asita, Kaksivan, Gautama, Atri, Sage Atri, Cha, and Kaushika, Alta, as well as Sudashan. Translation. purport by his evangelist Labai Charanaravinda Sibhakti Vedanta Swami, Patita Pavana Jagaguru Savior of the world Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. All the sages like Parvata Muni, Narada, Daumya, Vyasa, the incarnation of God, Brihadasva, Bharadwaja, and Parasuram and disciples, Vasista, Indra Pramada, Prita, Gritsamada, Asita, Kakshivan, Gautama, Atri, Kausika, and Shuddashan were present. Purport by Srila Prabhupada. This purport is a very, very long one. And Srila Prabhupada simply, in this purport to this text, gave the historical background and the personalities that we are mentioned in this verse. As we can see, this verse, the two verses are just referring to those great personalities that were also present at the bedstead of Aru, in which Srila Bhishma Dev was lying down. So it's a very long purport because Srila Prabhupada has to give elaborate explanation about who these personalities are. And for the purpose of our purification, I will just read it. Then we'll use the remaining time to share few realization based on some of the points that Srila Prabhupada mentioned in describing these great personalities. And purport by Srila Prabhupada. Srila Prabhupada started by explaining the personality of Parvata Muni. He said, Parvata Muni is considered to be one of the oldest sages. He is almost always a constant companion of Narada Muni. They are also spacemen competent to travel in the air without the help of any material vehicle. Parvata Muni is also a Deva Rishi, or a great sage amongst the demigods. Like Narada, he was present along with Narada at the sacrificial ceremony of Maharaj Janamejaya, son of Maharaj Parikshit. In this sacrifice, all the snakes of the world were to be killed. Parvata Muni and Narada Muni are called Gandharvas, also because they can travel in the air singing the glories of the Lord. Since they can travel in the air, they observed Draupadi's Swayamvara ceremony, selecting of her own husband from the air, like Narada Muni. Parvata Muni also used to visit the royal assembly in the heaven of King Indra as a Gandharva. Sometimes he visited the royal assembly of Kuvera, one of the important demigods. Both Narada and Parvata were once in trouble with the daughter of Maharaj Srinjaya. Maharaj Srinjaya got the benediction of his son by Parvata Muni. That is the personality of Parvata Muni. Then the next person is Narada Muni. Srila Prabhupada described Narada Muni as like this. Narada Muni is inevitably associated with the narrations of the Puranas. He is described in the Bhagavatam in his previous life. He was the son of a maidservant, but by good association with pure devotees, he became enlightened in devotional service, and in the next life, he became a perfect man, comparable with himself only. In other words, he has no comparison. You can't have anyone to compare with his personality. Narada Muni was such like that. In the Mahabharata, his name is mentioned in many places. He is the principal Devarishi, or the chief sage among the demigods. He is the son and disciple of Brahmaji. And from him, the disciplic succession in the line of Brahma has been spread. He initiated Prahlad Maharaj, Dhruva Maharaj, and many celebrated devotees of the Lord. He initiated even Vyasadeva. Madhavacharya was initiated. Oh, sorry, I think I jumped something. Initiated even Vyasadeva and the author of the Vedic literatures. And from Vyasadeva, Madhavacharya was initiated, and thus the Madhava Sampradaya, in which the Gaudiya Sampradaya is also included, are spread all over the universe. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu belonged to this Madhava Sampradaya. Therefore, Brahmaji, Narada, Vyasa, down to Madhva, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, and the Goswamis all belong to the same line of disciplic succession. Naradaji has instructed many kings from time immemorial. In the Bhagavatam, we can see that he instructed Prahlad Maharaj while he was in the womb of his mother, and he instructed Vasudeva, father of Krishna, as well as Maharaj Yudhishthira. For the sage Daumya, a great sage who practiced severe penance at Utkochaka Tirtha, and was appointed royal priest of the Pandava kings. He acted as a priest in many religious functions of the Pandava Samskara, and also each of the Pandavas was attended by him at the betrothal of Drupadi. He was present even during the exile of the Pandavas and used to advise them in circumstances when they were perplexed. He instructed them how to live incognito for 1 year, and his instructions were strictly followed by the Pandavas during that time. His name is mentioned also when general funeral ceremony was performed after the Battle of Kurukshetra. In the Anusashana Parva of Mahabharata, 127, 15 to 16, he gave very elaborate religious instructions to Maharaj Yudhishthira. He was actually the right type of priest of a householder, for he could guide the Pandavas on the right path of religion. A priest is meant for guiding the householder progressively in the right path of ashrama dharma, or the occupational duty of a particular caste. There is practically no difference between the family priest and the spiritual master. The sages, saints, and brahmanas were especially meant for such functions. Then Badarayana or Srila Vyasadeva. Srila Vyasadeva is known as Krishna Dwapayan. Dwapayan Satyavati Sutta Parasaraya Parasara Maja Badarayana Vedavyas, etc. These are all the names of Vedavyas, Srila Vyasadeva, or primarily Badarayana. He was the son of Mahamuni Parasara in the womb of Satyavati prior to a betrothal with Maharaj Shantanu, the father of the great general, grandfather Bhishmadev. He is a powerful incarnation of Narayan, and he broadcast the Vedic wisdom to the world. As such, Vyasadeva is offered respect before one chants the Vedic literature, especially the Puranas. Sukadev Goswami was his son, and rishi like Vaishampayana were his disciples for different branches of the Vedas. He is the author of the great epic Mahabharata and the great transcendental literature Bhagavatam. The Brahma Sutra, the Vedanta Sutra, or Badarayana Sutra were compiled by him. Among sages, he is the most respected author by dint of severe penances. When he wanted to record the great epic Mahabharata for the welfare of all people in the age of Kali, he was feeling the necessity of a powerful writer who could take up his dictation. By the order of Brahmaji, Sri Ganeshji took up the charge of noting down the dictation on the condition that Srila Vyasadeva would not stop dictation for a moment. The Mahabharata was thus compiled by the joint endeavor of Srila Vyasadeva and Deva Ganesh. By the order of his mother Satyavati, who was later married to Maharaj Shantanu, and by the request of Bhishmadev, the eldest son of Maharaj Shantanu, by his first wife, the Ganges, he begot 3 brilliant sons, whose names are Drita Rashtra, Pandu, and Vidura. The Mahabharata was compiled by Vyasadeva after the Battle of Kurukshetra and after the death of all the heroes of Mahabharata. It was first spoken by the Royal Assembly of Maharajana Vijaya, the son of Maharaj Parikshit. Brihadasva, an ancient sage who used to meet Maharaj Yudhishthira now and then. First of all, he met Maharaj Yudhishthira at Kamyavana. This sage narrated the history of Maharaj Nala. There is another Brihadasva, who is the son of the Ikshwaku dynasty. Reference to that is taken from Mahabharata Vana Parva, page 209, 4 to 5. Then Bharadwaja is one of the 7 great rishis and was present at the time of the birth ceremony of Arjuna. The powerful rishi sometimes undertook severe penances on the shore of the Ganges, and the Shastram is still celebrated at Prayaga Dhamma. It is learned that this rishi, while taking birth in the Ganges, happened to meet Gritashi, one of the beautiful society girls of heaven, and thus he discharged semen, which was kept and preserved in an earthen pot, and from which Drona was born. So Dronacharya is the son of Bharadwaja Muni. Others say that Bharadwaja, the father of Drona, is a different person from Maharishi Bharadwaja. He was a great devotee of Brahma. Once he approached Dronacharya and requested him to stop the battle of Kurukshetra. Then Parasuram, or Renuka Sutta. Renuka Sutta or Parasuram is the son of Maharishi Jamadani and Srimati Renuka. Thus, he is also known as Renuka Sutta. He is one of the powerful incarnations of God, and he killed the Kshatriya community as a whole 21 times. With the blood of the Kshatriyas, he pleased the soul of his forefathers. Later, he underwent severe penances at the Mahendra Parvata. After taking the whole earth from the Kshatriyas, he gave it in charity. Saramuni instructed the Danu Veda, or the science of fighting, to Drona Acharya because he happened to be a Brahmana. He was present during the coronation of Maharaj Yudhishthira, and he celebrated the function along with other rishis. Parasuram is so old that he met both Rama and Krishna at different times. He fought with Rama, but he accepted Krishna as the Supreme Personality of Godhead. He also praised Arjuna when he saw him with Krishna. When Bhishma refused to marry Amba, who wanted him to become her husband, Amba met Parashuram, and by her request only, he asked Bhishma Dev to accept her as his wife. Bhishma refused to obey his order. Although he was one of the spiritual masters of Bhishma Dev, Parashuram fought with Bhishma Dev when Bhishma neglected his warning. Both of them fought very severely, and at last Parasuram was pleased with Bhishma and gave him the benediction of becoming the greatest fighter in the world. Vashishta Muni, the great celebrated sage among the Brahmanas, well known as the Brahma Rishi, Vashishta Deva, is a prominent figure in both the Ramayana and the Mahabharata periods. He celebrated the coronation ceremony of personality of God, Sri Ram. He was present also on the battlefield of Kurukshetra, and he could approach all the higher and lower planets. And his name is also connected with the history of Hiranyakasipu. There was a great tension between him and Vishwamitra, who wanted his Kamadhenu, which fulfilling cow. Vashishta Muni refused to spare his Kamadhenu, and for this, Vishwamitra killed his 100 sons. As a perfect Brahmana, he tolerated all the taunts of Vishwamitra. Once he tried to commit suicide on account of Vishwamitra's torture. But all his attempts were unsuccessful. He jumped from a hill, but the stone on which he fell became a stack of cotton, and thus he was saved. He jumped into the ocean, but the waves washed him ashore. He jumped into the river, but the river also washed him ashore. Thus, all his suicide attempts were unsuccessful. He is also one of the 7 rishis and husband of Arundhati, the famous star. And Mother Arundhati is here to with us today. So, Mother Arundhati, I think you are hearing.
She's hearing you, Prabhu.
Okay, good. Indra Pramada, another celebrated rishi. Trita, one of the 3 sons of Prajapati Gautama. He was the 3rd son, and his other 2 brothers were known as Ekat and Duta. All the brothers were great sages and strict followers of the principles of religion. By dint of severe penances, they were promoted to Brahmaloka, the planet where Brahmaji lives. Once, Trita Muni fell into a well. He was an organizing worker of many sacrifices. And as one of the great sages, he also came to show respect to Bhishmaji at his deathbed. He was one of the 7 sages in the Varuna Loka. He hailed from the western countries of the world. As such, most probably, he belonged to the European countries. At that time, the whole world was under one Vedic culture. So this is a very interesting one because sometimes devotees ask the question, Vedic culture is originating from India. But Vedic culture is not just a scripture that is limited to a particular geographical location of the world. The Vedic scriptures is the manual for the whole creation. That is why we see in the Srimad Bhagavatam that so many pastimes interwoven. Sometimes we are hearing different pastimes from different planets, from different universes, all combined together because the Vedas is all encompassing. In the purport, in the introduction to Upanishad, Prabhupada gave a very wonderful explanation of this Vedic literatures. So we can see from this explanation from Prabhupada of Sage Trita that Vedic culture was here at some point. It's not that just Vedic culture just came here in 1965 when Srila Prabhupada came to the West. Vedic culture has been here, but it has been forgotten. That is just as it is the nature of the Lord. Whenever and wherever there is a decline, he appears. So the Lord appeared in the Western world in this modern time in the person of Srila Prabhupada, just to remind us of what we have forgotten. Like Srila Prabhupada always say in some of his purport, he explained that when he went to London, and a reporter was asking him a question, Srila Prabhupada answered him. So we already know God here. Why are you coming here? And Srila Prabhupada said, I came to remind you what you have forgotten. So the next sage Prabhupada is describing here is giving the profile of the next sage, Grita Samhada, one of the sages of the heavenly kingdom. He was a close friend of Indra, the king of heaven, and was as great as Brihaspati. He used to visit the royal assembly of Maharaj Yudhishthira, and he also visited the place where Bhishma Dev breathed his last. Sometimes he explained the glories of Lord Shiva before Maharaj Yudhishthira. He was the son of Vita Avya, and he resembled in features the whole body of Indra. Sometimes the enemies of Indra mistook him to be Indra and arrested him. He was a great scholar of the Rig Veda, and thus he was highly respected by the Brahmana community. He lived a life of celibacy and was powerful in every respect. Then the sage Asita. The sage Asita, there was a king of the same name, but herein the Asita mentioned in this Asita Devala is the Asita Devala Rishi, a great powerful sage of the time. He explained to his father 1,500,000 verses from the Mahabharata. He was one of the members in the snake sacrifice of Maharaj Janamejaya. He was also present during the coronation ceremony of Maharaj Yudhishthira along with other great rishis. He also gave Maharaj Yudhishthira instructions while he was on the Anjana hill. He was also one of the devotees of Lord Shiva. Then they said, Kaksivan. Kaksivan is one of the sons of Gautama Muni and the father of the great sage Chanda Kausika. He was one of the members of the parliament of Maharaj Yudhishthira. Then Atri. Atri Muni was a great Brahmana sage and was one of the mental sons of Brahmaji. Brahmaji is so powerful that simply by thinking of a son, he can have it. These sons are known as Manasa Putras. Out of 7 Manasa Putras of Brahmaji, and out of the 7 great Brahmana sages, Atri was one. In his family, the great Prasitas were also born. Atri Muni had 2 Kshatriya sons who became kings. King Atharma is one of them. He's counted as one of the 21 Prajapatis. His wife's name was Anasuya, and he helped Maharaj Parikshit in his great sacrifice. Then the sage Kausika is one of the prominent and permanent rishi members in the royal assembly of Maharaj Yudhishthira. He sometimes met Lord Krishna. There are several other sages of the same name. And last but not the least, Sudarshana. And Srila Prabhupada explained thus: this will, which is accepted by the personality of Godhead, Vishnu or Krishna, as his personal weapon, is the most powerful weapon, greater than the Brahma Astra or similar other disastrous weapons. In some of the Vedic literatures, it is said that Agni Dev, the fire god, presented this weapon to Lord Sri Krishna. But factually, this weapon is eternally carried by the Lord. Agni Dev presented this weapon to Krishna in the same way that Rukmini was given by Maharaj Rukma to the Lord. The Lord accepts such presentation from his devotees, even though such presentations are eternally his property. There is an elaborate description of this weapon in the Adi Parva of the Mahabharata. Lord Sri Krishna used this weapon to kill Shishupal, a rival of the Lord. He also killed Shalva by this weapon, and sometimes he wanted his friend Arjun to use it to kill his enemies. This is quoted from Mahabharata, Virata Parva 56.3. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Isn't this very sweet?
And a lot of history.
Yeah. when I was looking at this test last week, when I was thinking about today, initially I was thinking I was not going to read this test, this purport, because it's so long. We can see that's taking half of the time for the lecture. But something happened on Saturday, which inspired me, and I said I was going to read this. On Saturday, I was inducted as a Chartered Institute of Leadership, Education and Development in United States of America by the top bodies from there. So when we went for the program, there were about 7 of us who were inducted. And the host at a point in time, you know, in academia world, when someone is going to speak, then the recitation of the personality will be recited. And sometimes it could become very cumbersome when there are so many people to be able to be given an award or to be given another, to be given certificate. So you see that the recitation of the of the profile or biodata of those persons takes a very long time. And while we were there, they were reciting. They recited mine, they recited the other person's, and then also when he recited up to some point, he stopped. He said, "Isn't this recitation too long?" Then he said something. He said, "Well, why should I continue reading this?" He said, "But wait." He said, "Why does the academic people, why do they take pleasure in reading this?" He said, "Because this recitation gives value to whoever is the audience and inspire them to want to listen, to want them to get the benefit of the personalities that are recited." And I remember something. So like Krishna Pad, Guru Maharaj, when he was for programs, he will always get his biodata read before he speaks. And so one day, when we came back to the temple, he was asking us in the class, he said, "So why is it that devotees, he said, why do you think that I allow them to recite this? Is this just because I want them to know that I'm from Princeton University, I'm from this or that?" Then he explains. He said the reason is that most of the times, these recitations inspires the readers, the listeners, and motivate them to take advantage even more than the speeches that are made. Because when they listen to the biodatas or profiles of the person that is about to speak, or the person that is to be awarded or inducted in any case, it energizes the mind of the listeners. So when I was listening to that on Saturday, and I said, look, what if the Kamiks can value recitation like this, then how much more the recitations of these great personalities? I'm sure that even some of the sages that are described there, I have not read deeply their story, although I've read Mahabharata at different times, but they did not sing as Prabhupada has explained them here in this purport. So Prabhupada did a lot of things by reciting them. And the sweetness, the purification that it affords the listener. So I said, okay, I will go ahead and recite this. And I'll just take the little whatever time that is remaining to just give some few realization. I said, the only reason why I will not read this is if there are members of the Gyana Shakshi Prabhu's team there, and the numbers are too many, then I may maybe skip it. But if there are only devotee community, and that's why I decided to recite this. And when I was reading this, there are a few thoughts that are coming to my mind on this text. When you look at the text, one will wonder, why is this text captured together, and what is the significance of this text in the line of the story that Sukha Goswami was explaining in this part of the Srimad Bhagavatam? Lord Krishna, he mentioned that in the Bhagavad Gita to Arjuna, that Jamma Karma Chami Divyam, Ivam Yo Veti Tatota, Tatwa Deha Punal Janma, Naitimam Eti Sojuna, that one who understands the transcendental nature of my appearance and activities, upon this quitting this material world, he will not come back into this material world at all. But what is the significance of that? What is the need for that? Why should one not come back to this material world? What is the need of it? General Bhishma Dev, in the later part of this same chapter we are reading, I think in the text number 17 downward, he explained very nicely. In three verses, he explained very 16, 17, and 18. After all of these personalities that Prabhupada is describing assembled, General Bhishma Dev said, "O king," he's talking to Maharaj Yudhishthira, he said, "No one can know the plan of the Lord, Sri Krishna, even though great philosophers inquire exhaustively, they are bewildered still." Then in text number 17, he said, "O best, among the descendants of Bharata, Yudhishthira, I maintain therefore that all this is within the plan of the Lord. Accepting the inconceivable plan of the Lord, you must follow it. You are now the appointed administrative head. And my Lord, you should not take care of these subjects who are now rendered hopeless." And in the next verse, he said, "This personality, this Krishna, is no other than the inconceivable original personality of Godhead. He is the first Narayan, the supreme enjoyer, but he is moving amongst the descendants of the King Vishnu, just like one of us, and is bewildering us with his created energy." This is the purpose of all revealed scriptures. The whole purpose of reading Srimad Bhagavatam, the whole purpose of the Vedic scriptures, the whole purpose of our endeavor in spiritual life is to be able to hear the supreme personality of Goddess and the devotees' activities. Other than that, there is nothing else, because the medication that cures the living entities from the disease of avidya or ignorance that makes him to suffer life after life in the material world from one body to another body are all hidden in what? In this transcendental narration of the personality of Godhead. So the Lord, he inconceivably hid the secret of the whole of the existence of the creation, the whole existence of the devotional activities, the whole existence of the devotional endeavors is all hidden in the Lord activities and his devotees. The whole of our endeavor in spiritual life is to come to this point where we can be able to do what? To be able to listen, hear, and enjoy the blissfulness of the Lord and his devotee. In the Srimad Bhagavatam, in this first canto, I think chapter 2, text number 28, Sukadeva, he has earlier mentioned, he said, "Dhammasya swanuti sta pumsha, viswak sena katau yaha, not padayet yadira atim." And Prabhupada always quote the last stanza. Oftenly, Prabhupada quote that last stanza. Sama eva I kevalam. Sama eva I kevalam means what? That there's no other thing, no other. The translation of that verse says that the occupational activities of a man performs according to his own positions are only so much useless labor if they do not provoke the attraction for the message of the supreme personality of Godhead. That is the whole essence. Our whole endeavor from the process, from the beginning stage of devotional life, Vaidhi Bhakti, to the elevated level of Sadhana Bhakti, which is Raganuga Bhakti, spontaneous devotional service, rising to the platform of Bhava Bhakti, loving devotional service to the supreme personality of Godhead, and to the ultimate zenith of our devotional career, Prema Bhakti, is all hidden in what? These narrations of the supreme personality of Godhead. To develop that taste, to hear, to become enlivening by hearing these narrations is the whole essence of our devotional life. And that is why Lord Krishna, he told Arjuna in the Bhagavad Gita, that these activities is what constitute the life of my devotees. Machita, in that verse of Bhagavad Gita, I think that Bhagavad Gita chapter 10, text number, I think that's the Bhagavad Gita chapter 10, verse number 9. Machita, Magata Pranam, Bundia Stas Paras Param. Kantas Cha Mamitiam, Tuchian Tisha, Raman Ticha. This is the life of devotees. So if one wants to be recognized, if one wants to be identified, if one wants to be known as a devotee, the only activity is just to hear about the Lord and his activities of his devotees. There's other things. The gopis, the topmost devotees of the Lord, their greatest pleasure is what? Hearing about the Lord and his activities. So the test of our bhakti, the test of our devotion is measured by what? By how much. Thank you very much, Prabhu. It is measured by how much we are able to blissfully enjoy devotional service. When Srila Rupa Goswami mentioned in the Nectar of Devotion that devotional service, the symptoms, the characteristics that makes a devotee, that makes devotional service is that one becomes what? One becomes blissful. It's the same thing that is being mentioned in this verse. When we look at verses like this in the Srimad Bhagavatam, and we will say, but what is it? It's amazing what Prabhupada did with this purport. Somebody will say, but this verse is just mentioned names of sages. So why would Prabhupada have to give a very long purport? It's one of the long purport in this whole of this chapter of this canto of this Srimad Bhagavatam. Why? It's just mentioning names. So Prabhupada could just go and then go to the next verse and give purport. But when Prabhupada gives elaborate purport on any verse, it shows the importance of that verse. And one will be wondering, so why would Prabhupada attach so much importance to mentioning the names of personalities that are gathered at the bedside of grandfather Bhishma Dev? Why would Prabhupada give such a long purport to that? Because that is the essence of bhakti. The essence of bhakti is for devotees to gather. Bhishma Dev has the potency, he has the capacity, he has the power. The moment his body was shot with all of the arrows to live. But as he himself has said in those verses I quoted earlier, in the later part of this chapter, the inconceivable arrangement of the Supreme Personality of Godhead was to create this enabling environment whereby what? The transcendental activity, narration of the Lord and his activities will be shared with Maharaj Yudhishthira and the assembled devotees that are gathered there. And this is the life of a devotee. Any other thing is Maya. It's non-devotional service. So the devotional service is hidden in association of devotees. That is why it is mentioned that Sadhu Sangha, it is the essence. Devotional service is about Sadhu Sangha. And what does Sadhu Sangha mean? Sadhu Sangha means when you come together, you talk about the Lord, you talk about his devotees. So in this verse we're reading today, Srila Prabhupada is teaching us the importance, the very importance in taking shelter of the narrations of the Lord and his activities of his devotees. So each and every one of us can test how our devotional standard is growing or diminishing by day. Our devotional service is known to us. It does not need any barometer to check whether we are advancing or we are retrogressing in the path of devotional service. The simple barometer to check that whether we are advancing or we are not advancing in spiritual life is to check how much are we getting attracted to hearing these transcendental activities of the Lord. Because this is the life of a devotee. The whole process of devotional service is culminating in this only one activities. From all of the rules and regulations of devotional life, it is to bring us to this platform where we hear about the Lord. Because only when we hear the Lord and his devotees' activities, only then we can remember the Lord. And when one is captured in this mood, he attains the ultimate goal of life. And what is that ultimate goal of life? That ultimate goal of life is that at the end of one's life, one is able to remember his eternal relationship with the Supreme Personality of Godhead And by such remembrance, he's able to come back to his original constitutional nature. The living entity's life existence is nothing that has to do with any other thing than this life of glorifying, hearing, and narrating the pastimes of the Lord. Sometimes we said with devotion, we develop devotional service. But devotional service is not kind of a development, because the bhakti, devotion is already there. Devotional service just needs to be unrivaled. It's just to be opened up. It's already existing in us. Devotional service is not something that will go and acquire somewhere. Neither of us, all the living entities that exist within this universe and all of the universes, is lacking in the seed of what is bhakti. But the fortune of a devotee starts when he comes in contact with such great personalities who are narrating. And then we can see this in the life of one of the personalities that is described in the purport to this verse, Narad Muni. And Srila Prabhupada quoted that very interestingly. The personality, the person that Prabhupada described in the purport that is known to other person. The personality, what? Narad Muni. Narad Muni is incomparable to anybody in explaining the person that is closest to him among all of the sages. Prabhupada emphatically explained that Narad Muni is known to other person. And Prabhupada, for our own benefit, he hinted us the secret. He said what? This personality in his previous life was born of a maid servant. And what was his life? Narad Muni himself, he narrated this to Prahlad Maharaj. That I was just fortunate. I was serving the sages during the 4 months of Chaturmasya. I hear by dint of good fortune, and I take the Mahaprasad. So it is showing us the potency, the greatness of this hearing about the Lord. Hearing is the beginning, is the middle, and the end of devotional service. Of all the rules and regulations, of all the prescriptions of devotional service, everything is hidden in only what? Hearing. In the beginning of devotional service, our hearing is for purification, to uncover that which is already hidden in us, bhakti. In the middle stage of devotional service, it motivates us to want to approach, to want to embrace the Lord. And in the topmost level of devotional service, this same hearing, it gives us the bliss of what? Of our real existence in relationship with the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So as devotees, my dear God brothers and sisters, if anyone wants to take only one thing in the whole of the process of devotional service and hold that very strongly among any other thing, then he should try somehow or other take this medication of hearing about the Lord and his devotees' activities. And when one develops that taste to hear, is said to be a successful candidate on the part of devotional service. So in devotional life, the most essential ingredients is that we should develop that taste for devotional service. And when we develop that devotional service taste, then our life becomes a success and it becomes an encouragement to others. And devotional service is so potent that when I was listening to an interview given by Kavichandra Maharaj on the history of the GBC recently. And the Kavichandra Maharaj was being asked a question. As in, it's interesting. I don't know, maybe some of us have listened to that interview by Namaras Prabhu on the devotee podcast. Namaras was asking, and Maharaj was explaining how he joined devotional service. And something caught my attention in that. Maharaj was explaining how his devotional service began. And at the point when he got to the peak of his devotional service was when he went into Japan. And he was not a temple president. He wasn't a GBC. He wasn't a manager. He was just a devotee who was absorbed in distributing Prabhupada's book and hearing. And Maharaj was explaining in that interview that the one thing that was his nourishment at that period was that he would listen to Srila Prabhupada's lecture, and that was just that was the fuel that energized the engine of his devotional service. And it was going on. So when he get there, and when they were doing, he said one day, what's his the Maharaj's name? Tamakrishna Goswami called him one day, and he called him and said, I'm making you a GBC. He said he was having a mixed reaction. And he said, why was he having a mixed reactions? Because his mind shifted from that moment. Then he took this responsibility into so many activities. And all of his devotional life is trying to regain back that momentum. His whole effort is trying to regain that momentum. So devotional service is all about not the position we had. And it says so many things about GBC, which was actually enlivening. And for me, very big revelations. And you see that sometimes when we look at our own level of devotional service, in our own devotional service, in service of our Guru Maharaj, we will realize something, that the best time of our life in devotional service are those times when we are not distracted by any other thing. We're just absorbed in the thoughts and hearing of Krishna activities. Our difficulty starts only those times when we become evolved into absorbing ourselves into management, temple president, temple commander, and all of these things. When we look back, all of us will see this. And then no wonder why Srila Krishna Path said that if we ever want to become successful on this path, we should rejoin Krishna consciousness every day. Because that our mood when we join Krishna consciousness is that we wanted to hear. All our attention was, what is it all about? What is it all about? And that is what this verse we are reading today is telling us to come back to. Let us come back to that moment when we were in the mood of what is it all about? And when we are in that mood, we want to hear, what is it all about? The narrations of the Lord. What is it all about Krishna? What is it about Krishna consciousness? Then we will regain our peak in devotional life. And we will be able to influence others in such kind of a mood of pure devotional service to the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Time is fast spent. I think I will have to stop here so that we can give room for some questions and answers. But I'll recite the verse of today once again. The verse is Parvato Narado Damyo Bhagavan Badarayanam Bra Dasvo Baradwajaha Sasisyo Renuka Sutta Vasista Indra Pramadas Trito Grit Samado Sita Katsivan Gautamo Trisha Kausikota Sudashana. All the sages like Parvata Muni, Narada, Daumya, Vyasa, the incarnation of God, Brihadaswa, Bharadwaja, and Parasuram, and disciples, Vashista, Indra, Pramada, Trita, Grita Samada, Asita, Kakiswan, Gautama, Atri, Kaushika, and Sudashan. We are present at the bedside of great grandfather Bhishmadev. Hare Krishna. So
Hare Krishna. Hare Krishna. Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Shri Salika Prabhu.
Thank you, Prabhuji.
I was a bit concerned for you because I couldn't figure out how to approach the text because it's a very lengthy historical facts that Shri Prabhupada gave. So I was wondering if you're going to just select 2, 3, speak on them and say something about them, but you did a very good job.
Thank
So,
you.
well, we'll ask devotees to unmute if they have any question. You raise your hand and then you ask a question. Well, before,
He's smiling.
okay, I see
Maybe he wants to
Kavi,
make some
Kavi,
comments.
I see Kavi Prabhu
His hand
sent
is up. So Prabhu, let's hear.
Yes.
It's not a comment, Prabhu. Thank you very much for the wonderful lecture. And also, I would like to use this opportunity also to wish Prabhu a very wonderful happy birthday. Although, I don't know, somehow or the other, we didn't get the information on time, so that at least the voters should post it in the group so that we can appreciate and celebrate Prabhu.
Is this Salika's birthday?
Yeah,
I think it was yesterday.
Ah, okay.
Yeah,
Hare Krishna.
I saw it later also. But I say I will use this platform to wish him, so the other devotees can also, take advantage of that. So we really appreciate you. Well done, Prabhu. Happy birthday. We wish you a strong devotional, pure devotional service as you are in your lecture, all about pure devotional. And my question would be, we've been hearing about pure devotional service, hearing and chanting, pure devotional service. And now at this point of my devotional journey also, even though I'm not in the midst of devotees like before, but now I'm mixing with other people and try to practice devotional service, although it's very difficult, just like you said. If you are not in the association of devotees, it's not very easy to practice devotional service. But now also we now start getting some other realization about these people also. When we are in the association, like yesterday, I asked a question to the mother who spoke yesterday also, and he gave a very wonderful answer.
Mother Rukmini.
So yes, Mother Rukmini. Yeah, my own concern is that yes, pure devotional service, which is very important. I'm beginning to think more that because it's whatever we emphasize more in our lectures, and that is what people, devotees, we take up. And many may take it on a superficial level, and we don't really dive into it. So like I was, after the Prophet T.B. Joshua left, I started seeing so many of his lecture and what he lived for and all the rest. And somebody was giving a revelation he saw before the prophet died. How when they were in the garden, in the prayer room, and he saw the angels coming down, about 4 of them. And immediately after, the prophet came into that garden and he spoke with them in parable about how it's going, how they have come and they are going. And after some time, the mood changed and he left the garden and he went back inside his room where he sat down, and that's how he left his body. So, and we can see that this is very auspicious way to live body. He just finished the work of God and he is leaving his body. And somebody said that he saw some angels coming to pick him home. And me, I began to think this guy must have been doing some pure devotion service in his own way. And
exactly.
Yeah, and when the time comes,
Network.
Yeah, the network is weak.
Yeah. It's a natural thing here. Anyway, yeah. Okay. Now we can hear
all right, you're back.
Prabhu, you say what?
Okay, we were not hearing you for some moments.
Okay. You are hearing me now?
Yeah, we can hear you now.
Yeah, what I'm saying is that can we, how can we practically, be explaining this pure devotional service in our day-to-day life to devotees more instead of more of we know hearing and chanting, yes, but how can we practicalize this in a way that we can be more and more loving to each other. That is my own.
Thank you very much.
I would like to say, Prabhu.
You know, like they say, bhakti begets bhakti. Unless one has devotion, he cannot give devotion to any other person. In our community, most especially in the beginning days of Krishna consciousness, especially in this part of the world, we took too much of the external superficiality, or like Krishna Pad will explain it, that in every tradition there is the exotic and the esoteric aspect of devotional life. The exotic is the flamboyant external aspect of it, the dressing, the rituals, and all of that. And the esoteric is the philosophy and the depth knowledge of and practice of that. So in the beginning days of our devotional service, we laid too much emphasis on the external at the expense of the internal or the esoteric aspect of this Krishna consciousness philosophy. And that is what has created a lot of lacuna in our practice of devotional service. And you will see that many devotees now are actually struggling for revival of their original intent in coming into devotional life. Because we have taken too much of artificiality, we have created so much of unnecessary difficulties on the part of our devotion. And that is why we have so much of challenges. But the only way we can rectify this is for ourselves to get deep into bhakti, the real devotional service. And when that devotional service is really seated in our heart, it will manifest. It will become infectious to other persons. And the way to do that is simply nothing else. Because the major challenge we had before was that we were taking this philosophy, we were taking this knowledge of Krishna consciousness for teaching it to others. We were not concerned about how to live it ourselves. So the best way we can make this happen in our life is for ourselves to become a devotee first. Because a devotee is the embodiment of all good qualities. And when one becomes a devotee, naturally, his relationship with other devotees, with the Lord, and the Lord's devotees, and even those who are non-devotees, will be different. And that is what is the descriptions of the different stages of bhakti. A Kanishta Bhakta is one who thinks it's me and God. He doesn't see any other person. And that is why it is explained in that manner. And when one is a Madhyama or that coming to level, it means that he has developed that level of devotion. So the only way we can start exhibiting, relating, and I'll tell you, I share one personal experience with you. Until some few years back, personally, there are so many devotees that I feel that they have offended me too much that they cannot be forgiven in life. But nowadays, I see myself praying for those devotees without their knowledge. And why am I doing that? Because I start realizing that these other persons are people who Krishna has used in my life for me to learn certain lessons, which I never understood at those times. And that is only as a result of my what? Because let me tell you, Prabhu, after Gurudev left the planet 16 years ago, I had almost about between 6 to 7 years of complete confusion. I may not have shared with anybody, but in total confusion, because yes, this is devotional service on one side. This is the practicality or the practice of devotional service on one side. And this is where the expectations of devotional service on the other side. But my reality was that I could not find any example that I could hold on to that could make me, that could inspire me among the devotee community. And this is as a result of the fact that, yes, those devotees, even some of them, genuinely did things that are not devotionally right, morally right, religiously right. But I didn't understand the Krishna's factor inside those situations as at that time. So as I started praying more and more, and then begging the Lord and my spiritual master that what is it that I can do to make a difference? And I started reading the scriptures more. I started hearing more the lectures. I started becoming greedy for hearing devotees lectures on different platforms. I started realizing personally myself that many devotees that I consider that have wronged me, actually, in essence, I start realizing the philosophy which I've read before, which never makes sense to me, that these are individuals who Krishna has used in my life for me to learn a lesson to grow in my devotional service. But because I wasn't that matured, I was seeing them as obstacle on the path of my devotion. So, in essence, to summarize, the answer to your question, that how can we practicalize this devotional service among our community? The easiest way to do it is for ourselves to deepen our devotional service. Because why? Once we become devotionally situated, when we come to the real platform of Krishna consciousness, we will see things differently. And because we are seeing things differently, we will act differently. And because we are acting differently, people will see us differently. And when they start seeing us differently, they will start relating to us differently. And when they start relating to us differently, we will start having a different relationship. That is what has worked for me. Hare Krishna.
Thank you very much, Prabhu. Thank you.
Hare Krishna.
Yeah. Thank you, Hare Krishna.
Yes, good sir. You're muted.
Sorry.
Yeah.
I had a call, but my question. I have a question here.
Okay.
Um, I think that the West has lied to the world and continues to lie to the world in so many instances.
Exactly.
In the sense that what we just read clearly indicates that the Mahabharata war could be said to be the First World War.
Yeah.
But nobody talks about it as First World War because here Srila Prabhupada is talking about what's the name? Traitor, who was coming from Europe. So it's coming from one of the European countries.
Yeah.
And if we read about the number of people that lost their lives, it could not have been just people from India alone. So I've heard from other devotees also say that different people from different parts of the world took sides and they were fighting for either the Pandavas or for the Kauravas. So my question is, how do we attempt to share this invaluable knowledge to the world? Because now the world actually thinks that our philosophy, our teachings are all mythological. Because if they cannot be proven, then it's myth. Meanwhile, the same people telling us that our teachings, our philosophy is a myth, they also have theories that cannot be proven, but they do accept them anyway. That's my question.
Yeah. Hold on, Prabhu. Just give me a second. I think I
Hare
have to
Krishna.
use my. It started raining here, so
Okay.
it is affecting the volume. So I'm not hearing you very clearly. Let me
Okay.
pick my earpiece and so I can hear you more clearly.
All right.
Okay, Prabhuji.
Hare Krishna.
Yeah, I can hear you now.
Okay. Well, I was saying that the West has been lying to the world, and because I think that, especially from what we just read, that the Mahabharat War could be considered the First World War because it did not just involve Indians, but it involved the rest of the world, as we can clearly see where Srila Prabhupada is saying that Trita was from one of the European countries. And he also said in the ancient days, the whole world was under one flag, and the capital was India. So my humble thinking is, how do we attempt to try to educate the people of the world that these teachings we have is actually not a mythology as they prefer to think, that it's a real true event that took place. That is my question. How best do we try to do that?
Thank you very much. Prabhupada has given us a very easy way. Book distribution. The more people that will give the opportunity to reach the Prabhupada's book, the more we will influence the world. Because there is no better way. And that is why our preaching in the as we do Harinam on a daily basis. Harinam is very good. Is the religion is the means of attainment of God for this age, but book distribution is very, very important. And we can say, even indirectly, that to the degree our book distribution has reduced, to that degree we are lacking in numbers of devotees today. When you remember, when this movement started, Srila Prabhupada, the first project Prabhupada started, the moment he started getting somebody was what? He printed flyers. And the first money that started coming in Prabhupada started BBT. Of course, it was not BBT then. It started ISKCON Press, and it started preaching the magazine. And from there, the book started rolling out. There is no better way, there is no better formula, to the best of my knowledge, that we can use in educating the world than spreading Srila Prabhupada's book. And that is why book distribution is the key to development of our movement. How much can we preach? How many people can we reach? And even if it is about the social media that is like the world mouthpiece and earpiece now, how much more, how much are we on the social media as ISKCON, as an organization? And even when we are there on the social medias, how many picked interest in listening to us? But naturally, when you see the life of devotees, check all the devotees, you will find that if not more than 7 out of 10 devotees that joined the movement joined because they read Srila Prabhupada's book. I'm just trying to be average. When you start asking devotees, how did you join the movement? Do you see that 7 out of 10 of them that will narrate will tell you they read some book of Krishna conscious movement? I joined by reading book. I never knew any devotee. I don't even know whether anything like devotional service exists. But I bought a book on a stand and I read. And even not knowing that devotees exist within my community there, I started practicing Krishna consciousness. And that is the story of so many and many, many devotees. So if we want to get the Western world and the old world all together to come to realize the truth of the Vedic teachings that we are carrying elegantly in our hand, we have to increase the book distributions. That's the only solution. So every opportunity that we have to use it to distribute more books. That's the key. In the beginning days in Krishna consciousness, in especially in West Africa, what was our lifestyle? Book distribution. And now, how many people go out to do book distribution? You can see. Then how many people are joining us? You can make the mathematics. And the moment we start going back with the book distributions, you will see the difference. That is what I think is the best formula for educating the world. Because Papa has done everything. There is nothing we can say that can be more better than what the Papa has put to us in these books that he has given to us. I hope I answered the question.
Well, yes, thank you so much. That's a very nice way of putting it, because I've heard Prabhupada used to say the books are like time bomb.
Yeah.
It's just a matter of time. It's gonna, so I think we should all try to distribute more books. Okay,
I think
Tom Sawyer has his
that's
hand.
what I propose.
Okay, you can unmute.
My respectful obeisances.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna, are you hearing me? Are you hearing
Yes,
me?
yes, we can hear you. Hare Krishna.
Okay.
Hare Krishna.
So, what is it? Happy birthday to you, Prabhu.
Thank you very much.
Wish you long life and more strength in your devotional service.
Thank you very much.
Just a little clarification I need about something you said and what your answer right now. You're just saying something very interesting about increasing the book distribution to be able to make people more conscious of the Vedic literatures and the information they are in. But then you also said something which I've heard many people said many times over, that in the beginning days, we attach so much importance to the externals that we were more concerned about the externals. So and hearing now about the importance of book distribution, because I'm just trying to know what are those externals that we were attaching importance to, besides which I want to figure out what is externals, because our focus used to be book distribution, right?
Yeah.
And some people thought that was the external, that we were not really being spiritual,
Okay, thank you very much, Prabhu. This is a very wonderful intelligence questions, and I know that you know the answers, but you just wanted us to elaborate on this. The secret of Krishna consciousness is hidden in four principles. Like Prabhupada said, purity is the force, books are the basis, utility is the principles, preaching is the essence. And just like a four pillars of a house, when one of the pillar is broken, no matter how powerful that structure is, it will start collapsing, even if it doesn't collapse completely. So this exactly is what I meant when I said we were focusing too much on the externals. Now, how do I relate this to our present day reality? In the beginning days, there was so much of book distributions, and we were making devotees like wildfire. That aspect was working fine for us. And the purity, our focus on practice of devotional service also was very, outstanding in the beginning. But then the problem comes in when the third principle comes in. Utility is the principles. We do not know how to apply these things in our day-to-day lives. And that is when we started emphasizing much.
Frozen again.
I think it's network. It will come back.
Yeah.
When it comes to utility,
Okay.
When it comes to the utility is the principles, we are not able to apply that aspect of the four pillars of Krishna consciousness house. So we misapply Krishna consciousness. We started taking the externals like, okay, we start looking at brahmachari, grihasta, sannyasi, all of these external aspects of devotional service. We make so much of focuses on them. We started thinking manager gradually the force of our preaching but it could not sustain them. And because it could not sustain them, more people could not join us. The old Maya that we have, especially, I cannot talk of other parts of the world, but I know that this is the same story that is everywhere, is that when our purity based on the mercy of Srila Prabhupada and our little sadhana that we were doing, and the distribution of the books was bringing the success. But when it comes to the application of Krishna consciousness, we lost it. And because we lost that aspect, our preaching, which is the essence, deteriorates. And when the preaching deteriorates, then our purity becomes like a show bottle. It was no longer fascinating any longer. And because our preaching, our purity wasn't no longer fascinating, then book distribution dropped, because we couldn't have distributed Srila Prabhupada's book without the purity. When Srila Prabhupada came into the West, Prabhupada only accompanying was what? Was the books. Prabhupada waited until when he had some books and he came to America, and that was the beginning. That was the opening up of Krishna consciousness. The whole of the story of Lilamrita started by Prabhupada distributing book when even was with Mahavadis and all of that. So the whole of Krishna consciousness started by the books. But the fact is that these 4 pillars that marks the 4 pillars of Krishna consciousness, unless the 4 of them is synchronized, there can't be a successful Krishna conscious community. That is my realization. Maybe I'm not, but the reality is that these 4 principles must stand. And Prabhupada exhibited that very perfectly when he came into the West. Prabhupada was having the purity, he was distributing his books. He knows how to apply on a day-to-day lifestyle. And that was why every devotee that comes to him, he saw them as Krishna's sending to them, and was able to properly engage them, which is the quality of a guru. And because he was doing that, preaching was expanding and everything was superb. So when I said that we were focusing more on the standard, I was talking about the 3rd principle, which is utility is the principles, which we did not do properly.
Okay, thanks. Thanks very much.
Thank you very much for this. Thanks for the
Hare
question.
Krishna. I
Kavi
see
Kanapura.
Kavi Kanapura Prabhu's hand up. But Prabhuji, if your question is not related to this particular question, I have a question to ask. But if it's related to this, you can go ahead and then you ask.
Prabhu, it doesn't need to relate, and it is related, but you can go ahead. You are my senior. You can ask your question. And
No. Prabhu, go ahead and ask your question. I'll come back to the answer Salika Prabhu just gave, because
okay. Thank you
I have
very
a
much.
question about that.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. So, Prabhu, my question is related to what you just answered, Prabhu, Varar Prabhu. And what I would like to mention something before then I ask my question. One time I was in a class of Briyabagar Swami Maharaj. So he was mentioning that in those early days, just like you mentioned, so he was saying that they were more focusing on how to save the world without thinking of saving themselves. And that is why many people got drowned in trying to save others, and they forget to save themselves. So, and so my own question now, is kind of, it's not a question per se, but it's kind of observation. What I've observed is that in the world now, in many organizations, and one thing that everybody have observed in the world now is that change is constant.
Yeah.
Everything is changing. No, and that is why Prabhupada was successful when he went to America. Because why? His God brothers, they have gone to UK, and when he came back, I read one particular pastimes. When the person was coming back, Prabhupada was actually one of those who went to the train station to welcome him, to bring him back to Mayapur. So they were asking him so many questions. Prabhupada was listening, and he was taking down notes. Okay. So, and that is why when Prabhupada went to America, he was able to do something different, which will lead to eventual success. So what I'm trying to say is that there's one thing that is very constant in the world, and that is change.
You're right.
Okay, we are talking about social media, you mentioned the other time. Let's say 15 years before, or let's say 20 years, social media was not very powerful as it is today now. So it's one of the powerful tools now. And that is why you see so many problem is going on everywhere in the world, almost every day, because people can share or whatever and connect with the world, become a global village. So what I'm trying to say in essence is that book distribution, as you mentioned, we talk about book distribution. Yeah, book distribution are the basis. We have to distribute books. Is there no way where ISKCON can set up a change management system? Like in some organization now, you have a change manager, a kind of in a GBC, part of GBC, to always analyze the dynamism of the world and how we can always, try to kind of, train our devotees to embrace this change in a way of how to give this Krishna consciousness to the people. Because if you see in Radha Gopinath, why they succeed, they were doing something different. Why they get the different kind of quality devotee they got? It's because they were doing something different from the holding devotees or old devotees of ISKCON were doing. And that little difference they were adding to their own bring a very quality devotee to them, which in turn now started training other devotees in ISKCON. So what I'm trying to say, is there no way where we can set up a system, either in Africa or wherever, where we can study? Because if you really want to make impact in a society, you have to study the people and see how you can penetrate them. Not just, okay, what works in America will work in Nigeria, what's working in UK. Because the environment is different. And one of our principles is, Desha Kala Patra, according to time, place, circumstances. So because if this thing is not properly applied, we'll just, we'll be chewing the chew, and some people will be tired of chewing the chew and they will want to look for something new to chew, and that may lead them astray. But if we do it as an organization, I think that will create a holistic way of doing things. I don't know. I don't know. Maybe you can just throw more light on this. Thank you, Prabhu.
Thank you very much, Prabhuji. Thank you. You've said it all, but I'll share one story and I'll just give some few explanation on this. You see, the problem in every part of the world, there is a unique deficiency in one of these four principles, and which is why when you study, in recent times, I've been studying the situation with European devotional community, and I've been interacting with devotees, and I've been listening to their stories, and I come to this realization that each and everywhere you find this Krishna consciousness not striving, if you look very closely, you find out one of the principles of success Prabhupada gave for Krishna consciousness is not there. Now, the question is, can't we do something differently? Let me take it from the global and bring it down to our local situation. The GBC are aware that, yes, there is a need to change things. And that was why I was quoting Kavichana Maharaj's interview, which was just a few days back. He was explaining the evolving nature, how the GBC evolved from the beginning to date. And he was giving some experience because he was there from the beginning days. And the challenge here is this, which is what is happening at the global level and is happening at the most of the part of the world, and especially in West Africa, is this one thing. What is that one problem? And Kavichana Maharaj, I love his responses in that. He said something very, very unique. He said, Namaras was asking him, he said, all of the mistakes the GBC makes, he said the problem is that we GBC do not see them as mistakes. And the beginning of a solution is to realize that you are making a mistake. Then you can start finding solution. Unless you realize that you are making a mistake, you won't provide a solution to it. So our policy statement as ISKCON globally and even West African, let's come back to home, is as a result of our inability to realize that we have derailed at some point. We need to retrace our steps. And I'll tell one story and I'll end it up on West Africa based on my realization. In the beginning days, I've told this story many times. Past times, this story was narrated. In the beginning days, when the book distribution was in the fire front, and then there was so much of books being distributed there was a competition between US and Europe then. And Prabhupada visited London at a particular time. I've forgotten the devotee name now. I quote his name most often, but I've forgotten his name. I can't remember now. Maybe anyone who can remember his name when I start narrating the story. So these devotees, they gathered. I'll remember the story, the name, maybe in the course. So they gathered, they were giving book reports to Srila Prabhupada. And there's this one devotee, disciple of Srila Prabhupada. He wasn't a book distributor. So, and you know Prabhupada with books. So when he comes, his book distributors are very close to his heart. So when they came together, they all sat down around Prabhupada, and Prabhupada was asking the progress report, and they were giving books. And this one was saying, this team, they dispersed so number of hundreds of books, thousands of books. And then they asked one of the books, top distributor, I think is, let me not speculate, but I can't remember the name now, especially. But he mentioned to Srila Prabhupada, he said, Srila Prabhupada, since we are already making so much of success, as at that time, Europe, UK was especially the top leading book distributors at that time. He said, since we are making success, Prabhupada, can you give us your permission that we go from temples to temple and tell them how we are, what the tricks, how we used to distribute the books, so that they also can follow it and distribute more books. And Prabhupada became grave immediately. And he was surprised. And he was suggesting to Prabhupada how to make the book distribution expand. Why would Prabhupada become grave like this? And when he realizes that, immediately he became calm, and he was Prabhupada. What is it? And Prabhupada told him, he said, Krishna consciousness has to come from within, not from outside. He said, if you give Krishna consciousness, because you are giving the books, does not mean that if any other person said the same thing that you said to somebody to get the books, it means that they are already taking the credit for the book distribution rather than understanding that the book distribution is empowered by the grace and the mercy of the Lord. So he told them, he said, you don't have to teach them, encourage them to do, but don't tell them to follow whatever you do, because it will not fly. And there was and in that particular gathering, the beginning of fiber Mridanga started on that particular meeting of Srila Prabhupada. So when Prabhupada responded to that devotee like that, that devotee came, the devotee that started the fiber Mridanga, and he mentioned to Srila Prabhupada, Srila Prabhupada, everybody is announcing their book distributions and everything, but I'm very useless. I cannot do anything for you. Prabhupada, at least give me something that also I can come and report to you, Srila Prabhupada, what I can, at least I'll be among those who are giving you some report. I found myself useless. And Srila Prabhupada said, no, it is not spiritual master. Yes, spiritual master can instruct the disciple to do certain things, but you have to, within yourself, come with what you have and offer it to Krishna. So you tell me what you want to. Krishna will inspire you from your heart, and I will give approval to it. So this devotee was asking, Prabhupada, but I don't know what I can do. He said, go and think what you can do for Krishna, and the Krishna will bless it. So that devotee went back. He didn't know, because he was expecting that Prabhupada would say, okay, you go and do this management, or you go and do that particular service. So he went back, and the following day he came back to Srila Prabhupada and told Srila Prabhupada, my dear Srila Prabhupada, I was thinking, one of the challenges that we have in the movement is that when we are bringing Mridanga from India to the West, because they are made with clays, almost half or more than half of them got broken on transit. Prabhupada, I'm thinking that I'm an expert in fiber and technology. Can I use fiber to make the body of the Mridanga instead of the clay? And Prabhupada gave me his blessing. And that is the beginning of fiber Mridanga, which is what is like 90% of the Mridanga that we use in the world today in the Christian temple. So the point here is this, that globally, and especially in West Africa, the leadership are thinking that, okay, this is how we used to do things. So therefore, it must continue to be like that. That is the problem. And as long as we continue like that, Prabhupada at any time never imposes how to do things. Most of the achievements that we record to Srila Prabhupada today, Prabhupada disciples come to him. And we are in the season of Ratayatra now. Ratayatra Cats Festival that started in San Francisco. Prabhupada has his vision. He gave the inspirations. But why would Prabhupada give so much of credence to Jayananda, because he uses. So we're not allowing devotees to grow. We want devotees to be what we are, and therefore we cannot grow beyond whoever is supposedly the head, and that is where the challenge is. So yes, you are right. For us to grow, we have to allow dynamism, but that does not mean that dynamism should turn into whimsicality. No, that does not mean that yes, everybody should do whatever he likes, but we must allow devotees to evolve based on their internal desire to serve the Lord, and things will start expanding.
Thank you very much, Prabhu. Thank you.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna, Sadhu.
Well, thank you, Salika Prabhu. Thank you very much. Let me say 41. Well, I understand what you meant when you said the early days of devotional service, especially in West Africa, we were more concentrated on the externals. I understand what you mean by that, but just like what made Sri Prabhu ask his question, if somebody doesn't really understand what and why you're saying what you're saying, then one might be led to believing that or thinking that the early devotees were just performing devotional service for show. But we all know that the early devotees who started the devotional service for some of us to have the opportunity to join were very, very dedicated. But I think instead of we saying they were more concentrated on externals, should be that the early devotees did not have better understanding. And so even though they were trying as much hard as they could to serve the guru, but because of poor lack of understanding, they oftentimes went wrong. So I don't know if you can throw more light on doing the right thing without having the best understanding of what you're doing and just showing off, because you initially talked about exoteric and esoteric,
Exactly.
the externals and the internal. I mean, the external, like people want to prove to people that yes, we are the Hare Krishna people. We don't eat outside, we don't do this, we don't do that. But devotees were not doing that just to prove to people that we are devotees, we don't eat outside. But they knew that they have to eat just prasadam. But I'm saying it, this is just my thought, that I think that the early devotees were doing a lot of devotional service sincerely, but most of them at the time did not have better understanding. So it made the service appear to be like a showy thing, but they were not doing anything to show off to anybody.
Thank you very much, Professor Dave. Let me say, I'm deeply sorry if my explaining that point makes it sound the way you are saying, but that is not what I meant. What I meant is that Sri Krishna Prabhupada used to say something, that the greatest danger in the path of any endeavor, especially in devotional service, is inattentiveness. The moment you become inattentive in any endeavor, you bargain for crisis. And that is why I explained in answering Prabhu Varara that, yes, there are 4 legs that is need to be kept for LD practice of Krishna consciousness. And one is that, yes, the purity was the devotees were actually Paka. And even in India and other places, They even see us as extremists in terms of following the principles. Devotees were doing that sadhana regulative activities very nicely. I'm not faulting that. And whether they were preaching with their distributing books, when I joined the temple, what I see as the life of devotee is to go out and distribute books. So the books were going out. So I know that devotees were never lacking in this aspect. And when I said that we get distracted, maybe what I should have used is, instead of we focus more on the external, was to say that we got distracted by the externals. We got distracted by the external. And what I mean by the external aspect of
Mhm. We cannot hear you, Salika Prabhu.
We cannot hear you again.
Yeah, we
Nigeria,
cannot hear you. Okay, good.
Okay. Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Okay, good. So there was a time, there was this culture of Brahmanical sacredness in the temple, that when you hear the Brahmana meeting, you dare not go in front of the Brahmana ashrams, and you are a goner. There's one of my god brothers, Sunaka Rishi. I will not mention how he get that, but Sunaka Rishi left the movement participation because of one mistake that was done by one of my temple presidents. Sunaka Rishi went out on Sankirtan. He came back late in the evening. When he came back late in the evening, he was on Yogi Pint and Kota. He went to the preach at the airport, where Mafoluku that time, and he came around 10:30, 11. Everybody has slept, and the person in the kitchen has already gone to bed, and his prasadam was kept in the deity kitchen upstairs. And was it the deity kitchen or even the general kitchen? It was in the kitchen, and you know, by tradition, we don't enter the kitchen, whether deity or the general kitchen, with kota, pinjami suit in those days. Or you can only go there when you have taken your bath and tie your dhoti and put tilak. And Sunaka Rishi entered the kitchen. In fact, he didn't enter inside and one leg outside. Inside the kitchen, and took a prasadam plate that was kept there for him. And because of that, he was suspended and sent out of the movement. And that young boy then could not comprehend it. That yes, there was a mistake, but just a slim thing like that. And it was that discipline was in today's world. Even we see that even devotees stayed in the cushion, keeping for the deities directly with Jogi Pint and Pint. Jogi Pint and Kota. So that was an extreme aggression in correcting a simple mistake. This is just one example, and there are so many examples of what we did in those days. In those days, you and I would not even be sitting here talking Bhagavatam. What I was personally sent out of the temple because why? Even though I was engaged in marital life before I joined the movement, I left my wife and then I came into the temple. When I rejoined by the blessings of my spiritual master, I reconnected by my married life. I was told that the temple president meeting said I should go and stay outside because I'm now a grihasta. As at that time, I was a pujari, I was a book distributor, I was the one cooking for devotees. And Gurudev came back when he had, he said, who said that? I said, who sent you out? I said, they said, you said, Gurudev, that all the grihastas should go out. And I said, Gurudev, I asked them that day, I said, Ganga Prasad, Ganga Bini, Abimayu then was also a grihasta. I said, these people are grihasta. They said they are rendering higher service because they were temple president at that time. I was nobody. So it is not something that is hidden in West Africa. We know. And it is not just synonymous to West Africa. All over the world, there are mistakes that were made. And that is why I said that we get distracted by the externals at some point in time, and we destroy the nourishment of bhakti. And that started affecting our system. And because when there was no longer life in the system, our ability to attract people to come in was because there was life. Prabhupada was attracting devotees in the beginning days because Prabhupada had life. Anybody who come into Prabhupada get captured by the loving devotion of Srila Prabhupada. The early devotees, when you come across them, when you come in contact with them, when you come into their association, they magnet you by their potency of devotion. But because of these offenses among ourselves, we destroy the devotional arrangement that we had. And every other thing that we are doing good was gradually reduced to almost zero. And Salika said, I think that was the last time he came to Nigeria before he left the planet. He said to us at the airport when he was going, he said, if you guys want to revive things here, you need to understand that these things are destroying your devotional service. The offenses you are committing among yourselves to each other in devotional service and your inattentiveness to Guru's instruction, he said, is what is killing you in West Africa. So he said these two things, if you can correct these two things, your life in this environment will become an exemplary for the whole world. So offenses against each other and disobeying the other spiritual master was the bane of our development of Krishna consciousness. So when I said we got distracted by the external, it isn't that we were not practicing the process or we were not sincerely trying to do, but somehow or the other we become inattentive to the essence of bhakti, which is based on loving devotional association, which nourish devotional service, and we destroy every other thing with that.
Thank you very much, Prabhuji. Thank you very much. If anybody else has any question, but I say thank you for the elaboration you just gave. It's very interesting, very nice. Yes. His Grace Kavikanapura Prabhu has a question or comment.
No, I was just clapping for Prabhu for his answer.
Oh, thank you very much.
Okay. Okay.
Just give it a thumb up. I'm only
Okay.
inspired by you.
All right.
By your grace.
Well, Prabhu, may I ask you, maybe last question is almost 2 hours.
Okay.
I did not have the chance to ask this question yesterday, but yesterday Mother Rukmini gave lectures, beautiful as usual. And she was saying that we always say that we should not commit offense, do not commit aparad. And of all offenses, the most dangerous is Vaishnava aparad.
Exactly.
But she was also saying that we list or do not actually talk about being offended. In other words, we are more cautious of not committing offense to another devotee. But what do we do when we feel offended? So my question is, what do we do when we feel that somebody has offended us? I think that what we do is that, okay, you forgive. But how many times do you forgive? How many times do you forgive, and how in that forgiveness does that change the behavior of the person whom the individual feels that has committed the offense? How do we help that particular individual? If I offend you and you are such a wonderful devotee, so you tolerate me, how does that tolerance help me that I do not commit such offense again?
Thank you
Hare
very much.
Krishna.
Thank you very much. Nice, you asked a nice question. Maybe let me rephrase a Bible statement. Right? Jesus Christ said, when they asked him same similar question, they said 7 times. Then immediately he realized he said 70 times. And he said 7,000 times. Because if you just said 7 times in a day, somebody can even, we remember the story of Sisupa. So the thing is this, that how do we respond to the situation if somebody is offending us and we are seeing it? The first and foremost is that we ourselves, like I said in the course of my lecture, we have to come to that level of realization that nothing comes by chance. Although we say that everything is happening by Krishna's arrangement, but when we experience certain things, we no longer remember that philosophy. If we remember that everything that happened is permitted by Krishna, then the question first and foremost is that why would Krishna allow this person to offend me in such a way? That is, if we take offense at all. In the first place, we are not supposed to take offense no matter what is happened to us, because it has happened to us either by Krishna's arrangement for us to be able to get promoted from where we are to the next level, or for us to become attentive to certain things that we need to do in our service, or purposely, maybe, or supposedly, maybe probably because there is a need for us. Krishna is seeing us as a qualified guide to that person to help that person. So it could be either of these three cases. But if ourselves are not matured enough to realize that Krishna is the cause of all causes, then we take offenses. So one who realizes that Krishna is the cause of all causes will never take offense. And that is why Srila Haridas Thakur, when those soldiers were beating him in 22 marketplaces, his mood was what? He was praying to see how to help them. And that was why when they told him, we cannot kill you, tell us how to help you to do this, he was still giving them solution. So the first thing is that one who has become a devotee must never at any time take offenses. The moment we are still accepting that somebody offended us, it is exhibition of our own immaturity in devotional service. That does not mean that the person has not done wrong things, but it is for us to realize, like from my personal realization, whether this person is doing these things to me because Krishna wants me to learn a lesson to overcome that challenges or impurities for me to get to the next level, to overcome that level of devotion of challenges in life. Or maybe probably Krishna is bringing this so that I've become inattentive to some aspect of my devotional service. Krishna wants me to become attentive to. Or thirdly, maybe Krishna wants to actually even use us to help that person who's having that challenges. So if we think like this, it becomes easy. We will not be able to take any offenses. And even if we feel bad, we will be thinking of how to rectify the situation rather than taking offenses. So in that way, we'll take care of that. Then the question, the second aspect of your question was that, okay, for how long do we continue to do this? It is answered in the first, it is explained in my first answer that if we understand these three dynamics of looking at situations, it becomes easy. Even if the person continuously do that thing 20,000 times, we will be able to manage it, because Srila Rupa Goswami has given us a guide, a nectar of instructions, how to relate with individual person. A kanishta, a devotee, for an example, who is doing devotional service, like Srila Veda Vyas Paraj said, kanishta, he uses one word when he came in 2005, when he came to Nigeria, and when he listened to all of us in Lagos, he came to Lagos and he was listening to all of the devotees. He called a few of the leaders together in Lagos temple. And when he listened to us, he said, you know, you guys make me remember something we used to talk about in the early days in New York when I joined devotional service. And I said, Maharaj, Igali, what is that? He said, new fight, new fighters. He said, although the word is new fight, but we translate it in the temple in those days that new fighters. So whenever somebody is quarreling, we say new fighters. So whether somebody is 10 years, 20 years, 30 years in devotional service, the moment he still feel offended or is offending somebody, is a new fighter. When one advances in devotional service, he will neither take offense nor offend anybody. And if the person becomes too aggressive, he knows how to relate with him, because he knows he will give him a canister a distance, he will associate with a Madhyama, and he will serve a Prema Bhakta. I hope I answered the question.
Yes. Thank you so much. Thank you so much.
Thank you so
much. I think you did a very good service to the text. It was such a complex text with so much historical facts, but you did a good job.
Thank you very much.
In absence of further questions, we will ask all participants to unmute, and then we chant big Hare Krishna to express our appreciation to the speaker, Salika Prabhu. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. His Grace Salika Prabhu ki jai. And happy belated appearance day ki jai.
Thank you very much, Prabhuji.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Thank you.
Hare Krishna.
Haribo. Thank you, Your Grace, for us, Suman Varam Acharya. Thank you so much for being here.
Yes. Hare Krishna.
Thank you.
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Hare. Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare.